Welcome to the Vantage Fit Corporate Wellness Podcast. This podcast is sponsored by Vantage Fit, the all-in-one AI-powered corporate wellness platform developed by Vantage Circle.
Hello and welcome to another episode of Vantage Fit Corporate Wellness Podcast. I'm your host Parishmita, and we have today with us Amira Rajput, who is a somatic mental health specialist and also a mental health counselor and nutritionist. So somatic psychotherapy is a unique discipline. Soma is a Greek word meaning the living body. Therefore, somatic therapy adds a significant dimension to verbal psychotherapy by including bodily somatic experience as correlative, causative, and caused by psychological experience. So in this episode, we will discuss on the very topic somatic psychotherapy, which is now gaining importance and also have much prevalence in corporate wellness program. Hello, Amira.
Hi.
Welcome to our podcast.
Thank you.
We are so glad to have you here.
Oh, I was glad to be here. Thank you.
So shall we begin with the first and the most formal question of the session?
Yep.
So what is somatic psychotherapy?
Somatic psychotherapy or somatic therapy is a form of body-centered or body-oriented therapy that looks at the connection of the mind and body and uses both psychotherapy and physical therapies for holistic healing to reduce trauma or tension in the body. The word somatic comes from soma, which means body in Greek. It addresses and pays attention deeply to how the body absorbs stress and trauma. So it's a very excellent therapeutic modality of psychotherapy.
Is it kind of like, it involves something physical and other methods of healing, or it is completely behavioral or spiritual?
Well, oftentimes body psychotherapy does include spirituality. So it ties together often the whole person. So you're not just doing cognitive behavioral therapy. It's not just talk therapy. You're integrating the body into the practice. You're addressing the body, how a person holds themselves, how they talk, how they walk, their mannerisms in their physical body. The body never lies. It tells you a whole lot of information when you know how to track it.
So are there any types of techniques of somatic therapy?
There are. Beginning in the 1970s, there's a doctor by the name of Peter Levine who developed a version of somatic therapy called somatic experiencing. So it's a specialized version of somatic psychotherapy. So it's a technique that he developed, and it's a type that he developed. Also in the 70s, there was a guy by the name of Ron Kurtz, and he developed what's called Hakomi, the Hakomi method, Hakomi. And that's a method that emphasizes the physical nature of how you live in your body. It relies on the deep and sustained mindfulness. So a lot of this stuff that we talk about is about mindfulness as well. Then later on in the 80s and 90s, there's a guy by the name of Pat Ogden who helped create the field of what's called sensory motor psychotherapy. And it draws on the fundamentals of Hakomi method. Sensory motor psychotherapy incorporates ideas from cognitive behavioral therapy and neuroscience. So it does involve, some of these techniques involve cognitive behavioral therapy as well as body-oriented psychotherapy. So you're doing both. It's integrating both when talking about sensory motor psychotherapy. And some somatic therapy types or techniques would be like deep breathing, grounding techniques, visualization, meditation. There's dance and movement therapy, which is a specialized field of somatic psychotherapy, progressive relaxation, massaging exercises. So yeah, those are just some of the types, some of the techniques of somatic psychotherapy.
So basically, what can somatic therapy treat and how?
Somatic psychotherapy can treat pent-up tension in the body, anxiety, depression, stress, trauma via body awareness and reducing somatic symptoms through various types of somatic interventions, like the ones that I mentioned above, Hakomi, sensory motor psychotherapy, and somatic experiencing. And keep in mind, somatic psychology is still very pioneering. There's actually only 2 programs in the United States out of all the psychology programs. There's only just 2 that focus on somatic psychology, and that's at Naropa College in Boulder, Colorado. And the other one is the program that I went to, John F. Kennedy University. And that's now a part of National University, but it still is in California, in Northern California. So there's only just those 2 in the whole United States. But another thing that somatic psychotherapy can treat and how is rather than just the how part is rather than just talk therapy, talking about your struggles. Sometimes when you just talk, it can actually re-traumatize you because you're re-experiencing stressful events in your life. So that can be re-traumatizing, just doing the talking. And a lot of times when you do just talk therapy, you can get addictive, like to your own narrative, your own story. What story are you telling psychotherapists? What story are you telling yourself? And oftentimes people repeat the same stories over and over and over again, but they're not addressing the physical body, which is trapped into this fight, flight, freeze mode. So that's the trauma response, is that fight, flight, freeze. That's what's called PTSD. And somatic psychotherapies know how to go in there and release all of that stuck trauma through those types that I mentioned. Because remember, stress affects our brain and our body. It's not just, stress and then talking about your problems. So somatic psychology can assist in the process of unraveling so much struggle that you have, because it's literally struggles in the physical body. It gets trapped in the cellular matrix of our cells. Because keep in mind, we have memory cells. Our body is made up of cells, and we have memory cells, and we remember things. We remember trauma. We remember stress. We remember these things. So, but in addition to that, it's also important to, consume omega-3 fatty acids, dark leafy greens, prebiotics, probiotics, whole foods, protein for the amino acids that make up our neurotransmitters. So, really addressing a comprehensive approach to a person is important.
Absolutely. So does it also help in increasing our vibrational energy?
I would say it would, yes, because once you get unstuck and unravel things, it can be actually a very deeply spiritual experience as well.
Absolutely.
Which heightens your vibration.
So, Amira, how can it help employees overcome these health and well-being conditions caused by work-related stress in today's time?
This is a very good question, because they don't do somatic psychology in corporate wellness. I've never ever heard of a corporate wellness program that introduces somatic psychology. And stress, again, affects the physical body. And when you have somatic interventions, it can reduce the physiological symptoms of anxiety and stress by discharging stress energy, thus reducing cortisol levels. So somatic work involves the process of observing the body, its movement patterns from an integrated vantage point of theoretical knowledge, practiced observation, and personal embodiment. I know that's a lot to swallow. That seems like a mouthful. I'm hoping you understand what I mean by that. But basically, it can help employees overcome anxiety and depression that's associated with work-related stress.
Absolutely. Because in today's time, corporate wellness is talking about holistic wellness, but they are least into the subjects which they should adopt, like somatic therapy, right?
Yes.
So this is something new.
It's something new. And there's not a ton of research out there on somatic psychology. It's not been around as long as, like Sigmund Freud and CBT. So yeah, even DBT is still, DBT can sort of be a form of somatic psychology, in the fact that DBT, which means dialectical behavioral therapy, uses cognitive behavioral therapy and mindfulness. And mindfulness is a part of somatic psychotherapy. You're bringing together the mind and the body into a state of, meditation, to be able to have self-awareness about your body, self-awareness about yourself. What are you feeling? What are you thinking? What are you embodying? Yeah.
So do you think can corporate wellness include somatic psychotherapy sessions?
Of course. I wish they would. Yeah. But again, somatic work is still pioneering. There's only a couple somatic psychology programs in the world. 2 of them are here in the United States. And the one is John F. Kennedy University in Northern California, and then Naropa, which is in Boulder, Colorado. I highly recommend both programs. Fantastic programs, get a very well-rounded education that's very pioneering. So you can be more effective in your practices, and you can stand out as a business person when you're a therapist, when you offer somatic psychology, because there's not a lot of people that do that.
So coming to the end of the session, I would like to ask, what would be your take on changing approaches towards employees' health and wellness in today's time?
I think my take on changing approaches towards employee health and wellness in today's era, I would also, besides the somatic piece, because it is addressing the physical body, how you would also address the physical body is through nutritional medicine and sound dietary habits, or using adaptogens to reduce cortisol levels, because stress raises your cortisol, and it helps your body react to or recover from both short and long-term physical and mental stress. So when you're stressed, oftentimes your adrenal gland releases the stress hormone cortisol, that when over time leads to adrenal fatigue and exhaustion, lowering your immune system. So some adaptogens that, exist out there that could be very helpful are ginseng, ashwagandha, astragalus root, cordyceps, rhodiola, holy basil. But again, they're not meant to substitute for adequate proper nutrition, exercise, and sleep. You still need proper sleep, proper exercise, and those are also somatic interventions as well. So I would definitely include somatic psychotherapy, which is shown to regulate the nervous system as well. It can reduce physical and psychological discomfort. Somatic psychotherapy can decrease strain and pain, physical pain, emotional pain, spiritual pain. It decreases stress, reduces irritability and aggression. It improves concentration, and it helps connect you to your higher self. That's the higher self that is spiritual in nature. And it increases resiliency as well.
Thank you so much, Amira, for coming to our show and for your wonderful answers. I hope our listeners really benefited from it.
I hope so too.
Yeah, and especially our corporate listeners. Yeah.
Very good.
Thank you so much once again.
You're welcome. Bye.
See ya. Bye-bye.
Thanks for listening to Vantage Fit Corporate Wellness Podcast. Please do subscribe to Vantage Fit Corporate Wellness Podcast on Apple Podcast, Spotify, and our YouTube channel for new episodes.